Hey Steelers Nation, buckle up, because today's talk isn't just another breakdown of stats or post-game reactions. This one's about the pulse of the Pittsburgh Steelers, the heart, the grit, and that frustrating sense that something's just not clicking the way it should. You can feel it, right? That tension between potential and performance. That itch that says this team could be so much more than what we're seeing on the field right now. There comes a point in every season where you stop talking about what could happen and start demanding what must happen. And for the Steelers, that point is now. You can call it a wake-up call, a turning point, or just plain desperation. But there's no denying that this defense has to start looking like a Steelers defense again. The bleeding has to stop, or at least slow down, because if it doesn't, there's nowhere to go but down. Sure, maybe you can limp into the playoffs because the division isn't exactly stacked right now. Maybe you steal a couple of games, get lucky while other teams stumble, and suddenly everyone's wearing those "We Run the North" shirts again. But what happens after that? You travel to some cold stadium in January, maybe Buffalo, and the whole thing falls apart in a blink. You get served up like lambs. That's one version of this story. The other version, the one every fan is hoping for, is that this team finds an answer. That the spark hits, the defense tightens, and something finally clicks. And what better time to prove it than against the best team in the league right now? Because the Indianapolis Colts aren't some fluke 7-1 team. They've earned every bit of that record. They're balanced, efficient, and relentless. They can hurt you in so many different ways. And unlike some of the flashy offenses coming up next on the schedule, this team doesn't just rely on bombs downfield. They control the game. They wear you down. Jonathan Taylor's been the hammer behind that offense, pounding through defenses with that monster offensive line, giving him room to breathe. Their run game opens up everything else. The passing game, the tempo, the confidence. They do the little things right over and over again. So, if you manage to hold those guys to 16 points, you've done something right. That's a touchdown and 3 field goals. They've moved the ball, made you sweat, but you've stood tall when it counted. Maybe you've forced a turnover or two. Maybe you've finally found that discipline and energy that's been missing. And on the other side of the ball, maybe your offense is grinding out its own kind of day. Not explosive, not highlight reel stuff, but methodical. A touchdown, a couple of field goals, staying in the fight. In that kind of battle, one play, one kick can be the difference. It's not about predicting scores or hyping up scenarios. It's about showing that this team can play sound football again. Because right now, the final score doesn't even matter as much as the direction. You can win a 40-38 shootout and still walk away uneasy, knowing the problems are still right there under the surface. That's what's eating at this fan base. The defense, the identity of this franchise for decades, has looked lost. And when Terrell Austin and Arthur Smith faced the media this week, you could feel the spotlight burning especially hot on Austin. Everything he says gets magnified. Every explanation gets dissected. When asked whether the defense might benefit from simplifying things, cutting back on all the adjustments, the overthinking, the endless pre-snap confusion, his response said a lot without saying too much. He talked about the process, about making sure guys understand the details, about sometimes cutting things out or scaling back when needed. Now, whether that's the right call or not, time will tell. But here's what's clear. The players want that simplicity. They want to stop overcomplicating everything. They want to line up, know their assignments, and just hit somebody. No more second-guessing. No more playing mental chess while the offense is running past them. They just want to play football again, fast, physical, instinctive football. It might not look pretty against a creative play caller like Shane Steichen, and yeah, they might get burned on a few plays. But that's fine. That's part of the learning curve. That's how you rebuild a defense that's been shaken to its core. Because right now, this group isn't just struggling on the field, they're rattled. You can see it in their body language, in the hesitation, in the way communication breaks down on third downs. It's not about talent. This team has talent. It's about trust in the system, in the calls, and the guy next to you. And when that trust fractures, everything else collapses. Simplifying might not fix everything overnight, but it can rebuild that foundation. It can remind these players of who they are and what Steelers football is supposed to look like. It's not about fancy schemes or trick coverages. It's about lining up and winning the battle in front of you. It's about attitude. It's about showing up and saying, not today. Maybe that's what this matchup against the Colts needs to be. Not a statement win, but a statement of intent. A reminder to the rest of the league that this defense still has some bite left. Because, let's be honest, there's no miracle coordinator coming to save the day. There's no secret formula hiding in a playbook somewhere. It's about effort, execution, and pride. The truth is, firing a coordinator mid-season doesn't always fix things. It's not as simple as handing the headset to the next guy and expecting instant results. And Mike Tomlin isn't the type to take over defensive play calling himself. That's never been his style. He's a motivator, a leader, a game manager, not a play sheet coach. So, you work with what you have. You stick with the people you've got, for better or worse, and you figure it out. That's the only real option right now. This team doesn't need another shakeup. It needs clarity. It needs confidence. It needs to remember what it feels like to impose its will on a game again. Because when you look at the season as a whole, it's not about squeaking into the playoffs or hoping other teams collapse. It's about identity. It's about rediscovering that Steelers brand of football. Tough, disciplined, fearless. That's the challenge heading into this week. Forget predictions. Forget the noise. The result doesn't matter nearly as much as the response. Will this defense finally stand tall again? Will the bleeding stop? Will they finally stop playing scared and start playing like a team that believes in itself? Because that's where it all starts. Not with stats, not with records, with belief, with pride. And maybe, just maybe, that's the spark that flips the script on this season. And speaking of belief, that's the real test for this group right now. You can talk about schemes, effort, injuries, or even bad luck, but when a defense starts to doubt itself, everything else unravels. That's what's been happening in Pittsburgh. You can feel it when you watch them. That hesitation, that split second of uncertainty before the tackle, that extra glance toward the sideline for direction. The confidence that once defined this unit has been chipped away piece by piece. And when you lose that edge, when you stop trusting your instincts, it doesn't matter how talented you are. You're already a step behind. The thing is, this isn't about individual players losing faith in themselves. It's deeper than that. It's about the group as a whole losing faith in the process. They've been asked to do too much, think too much, adjust too much. When every snap feels like you're solving a puzzle instead of just reacting, you lose that raw, aggressive energy that has always been at the heart of Steelers football. You can't play freely when you're second-guessing every move. That's what's broken right now. And that's what has to be fixed before anything else. You can't fake confidence. You can't just tell a player to believe again after getting gashed for big plays week after week. It has to be rebuilt through results, through moments that remind them what it feels like to dominate. It's one thing to talk about accountability and discipline during press conferences, but it's another thing to walk onto the field and make a stop when it matters. That's the kind of moment this defense needs. Not a miracle, not a lucky bounce, but a hard-earned, grinded-out stop that flips the switch back on. And maybe that's why this upcoming stretch is so crucial. Facing a team like the Colts is exactly the kind of measuring stick that tells you who you really are. Because you can't fake your way through a game like that. You either bring it or you get buried. They're not going to give you anything easy. They'll test your discipline, your tackling, your resolve. And if the Steelers want to turn their season around, they have to embrace that challenge head-on. This isn't about surviving anymore. It's about reestablishing dominance. Now, there's been plenty of noise about whether Terrell Austin's job might be on the line. Fans are frustrated, and rightfully so. When you've got a defense this talented, giving up this many yards, people want someone to blame. But firing a coordinator in the middle of a season isn't a magic fix. It's not like flipping a switch and suddenly everything works again. Especially in this situation. Because if you take Austin out of the equation, who steps in? Mike Tomlin's not going to start calling plays. That's never been his role. He's a motivator, not a micromanager. The rest of the defensive staff doesn't have much experience taking over play calling at this level either. When the offense made that change last season, it worked because there were guys in place who could handle it. There was structure. There was a plan. This defense doesn't have that luxury. You can't just hand someone else the headset and expect a different result. You're still dealing with the same playbook, the same players, the same issues. That's why Tomlin's probably going to ride this thing out, at least through the end of the season. There's simply no better alternative right now. That's not the message fans want to hear, but it's the reality. And in a weird way, maybe that's what this team needs, to stop looking for a scapegoat and start taking ownership. Because at the end of the day, no coordinator can fix effort. No scheme can fix heart. Those things come from within the locker room. They come from players deciding they're done being embarrassed. That's where the turnaround has to start. What this defense really needs is to get back to basics. Line up, read, react, hit. Play simple. Play fast. Stop overthinking and start trusting. Trust the guy next to you. Trust your instincts. Trust that when you give everything you've got on a play, it's going to pay off. Because when you're playing with confidence and clarity, even a so-called average defense can look great. But when you're disorganized and hesitant, even the most talented unit looks lost. There's a reason fans keep bringing up the glory days of the old Steelers defenses. It's not just nostalgia. It's because those teams had identity. They had swagger. They walked onto the field expecting to dominate. You could feel it. And that's what's missing right now, that sense of inevitability. That feeling that no matter who lined up across from them, the Steelers were going to dictate the game. That's what has to come back if this season's going to mean anything. And look, nobody's saying this team needs to suddenly become perfect. That's not realistic. But there has to be visible progress. There has to be effort that fans can feel proud of again. You can lose a game and still walk off the field with your head held high if you played the right way. But when you give up 30-plus points and can't make a stop on third down, that eats at you. It eats at the fans, it eats at the players, and it eats at the culture. So when you look at the bigger picture, it's not about whether the Steelers sneak into the playoffs or steal a couple of division wins. It's about whether they can rebuild that foundation. Because if they don't, even making the postseason won't mean much. You can't fake your way through January football. You can't bluff your way into being a contender. You have to earn it with toughness, with execution, with belief. And maybe that starts this week. Maybe it's one of those gritty, low-scoring battles where the defense finally looks like itself again. Maybe Chris Boswell hits that one extra field goal and puts them over the top. Or maybe they lose by a couple of points, but you walk away saying, okay, now we're seeing something. Now we're building. That's what this team needs, something to build on. Because the longer this goes on, the harder it becomes to believe that turnaround is possible. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Whispers are turning into roars in Pittsburgh, as the Steelers locker room might soon have a new king in the red zone. The name on everyone's lips? Mike Evans. The veteran wide receiver, long celebrated for his uncanny ability to find the end zone, is reportedly set to join the black and gold, a move that could shake the AFC North to its core. Evans, known for his towering catches and seemingly magnetic hands, has built a reputation as one of the most reliable red zone threats in the NFL. Teams fear him not just for his size and speed, but for that almost preternatural knack of appearing where the ball will land, no matter how tight the coverage. And now, rumors suggest the Steelers may be ready to harness that power to ignite an offense that has long flirted with greatness, but often stumbled when it mattered most. Sources close to the situation hint that the move isn't just about stats, it's about identity. Pittsburgh has always been a team that prides itself on toughness, grit, and defensive dominance. Adding a player like Evans could signal a bold shift, a team ready to dominate the scoring area as fiercely as it has defended it. Coaches are said to be buzzing about the potential chemistry between Evans and the team's young quarterbacks, who might finally have the kind of target that makes defenses tremble. Fans are already speculating about highlight reels. Evans leaping over defenders in the Steel City sky, stretching for a fingertip catch in the end zone, or turning what looked like a routine throw into a game-changing touchdown. The excitement is palpable, and social media is alight with the hashtag King of the Red Zone, as supporters dare to imagine a new era of scoring explosions at Heinz Field. Of course, Nothing is official yet, and the Steelers' front office remains tight-lipped. But insiders hint that if the deal goes through, Pittsburgh could have just secured the kind of weapon that turns close games into unforgettable moments. In a division where defenses reign supreme, having Mike Evans in the red zone might just be the spark that pushes the Steelers from contenders to kings. One thing is certain. If the whispers are true, the end zone in Pittsburgh is about to witness a reign unlike any other. And fans? They're ready to cheer every majestic catch that will surely come. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.